Brad Bohannon is with us here on the program. I just talked to Coach yesterday afternoon for TV and got you back on the radio this morning. I told you yesterday, you must feel like the luckiest guy on the planet getting to talk to me 2 days in a row.
Yeah, absolutely, Gary, absolutely.
Let's just jump right in. Similar to some of the questions that I asked you yesterday afternoon for TV. First, just your reaction to the NCAA Division I Council to let schools offer spring sport athletes, including baseball, of course, an extra year of eligibility so they can play another season. You got the news on Monday. How does it make you feel?
Gary, I'm really happy for just seniors that play spring sports around the country. I just can't imagine, most college athletes have been playing their sport since a really young age, and to put years and years of time and effort and to have that senior year kind of taken away by something outside their control, I just thought was just awful. So I applaud the NCAA for giving the seniors the year back, and just think it was a really good decision.
All right, we discussed this yesterday afternoon, but roster management. What is your plan? You're going to have 5 classes on campus. You're going to have the 4 classes from this year plus an incoming freshman class, even with the NCAA relaxing the numbers and allowing you to have more players on your roster. That seems to me, at least, Coach, that's going to be somewhat of a challenge.
I think there's going to be a lot of challenges going forward, and obviously roster management will be one of them. I mean, these are unprecedented times, and we're all having to work through things that we've never had to work through before. So, I don't think it's going to be as bad initially as maybe we all think. I don't think every senior is going to be back. In our sport, a lot of our kids are financing $20-25 grand a year, and to do that, working towards a college degree is one thing, and to do that once you have your college degree is another thing. The Major League Baseball draft always has an impact on our roster, and we still don't know the specifics of that. So, I think the bigger issue is going to be maybe a couple of years down the road. So, just for sake of round numbers, if you have 10 freshmen on your team this year and you signed 10 kids on the fall, then, in theory, you have 20 freshmen next year. So I don't think any team with a roster of 35 would want to have, 20 kids in one age group. So, I think you're going to have bigger issues a couple years down the road than we are just trying to get to 35 next February.
You should have a good club next year, and I think a lot of people are immediately going to say, well, wow, Alabama's going to be loaded because they're going to get everybody back and have a new freshman class coming in, and I get that. But how disappointing, even though you understand, we all understand the circumstances that dictated this, how disappointing was it for you, your staff, and the players at 16-1 with a club that looked like it just had not only talent but just oneness and just great chemistry and was loving playing the game? You're just about to go into your SEC schedule against Missouri, and you have the rug just pulled out from under you, and you can never get this team back. Next year's team will be a new team, regardless of what people are saying. It'll be a new team. What did that feel like? What was that like? You're just about to play Missouri to begin the SEC schedule to really find out where you're at. You're 16-1, your best start in 23 years, and all of a sudden, the snap of a fingers, it's gone.
Everything you said is dead on. I mean, it was gut-wrenching, and I did an interview last week, and I used the word traumatic. And as soon as I said it, I felt awful. I'm like, there's people dying around the world, and we're talking about losing baseball season being traumatic, but. This is a 2.5-year process. It wasn't just about, this group and this team in the last 6 months. We've got some older kids on our team that have had a really bad 2 or 3 year baseball experience, and we had all collectively been working towards, putting a team together that could compete for championships, because that's what you're supposed to do at Alabama. And there's no doubt in our player or staff's mind that, we had a postseason caliber team. Once you get into a regional, especially from this conference, you have a chance to win it. And that was our mindset from day one, and felt like for 4 weeks in non-league play that we had kind of backed that up. But with all that being said, you don't truly know. You don't have the closure. And yes, we did have a lot of young talent. We had a lot of people who will be back next year in really key roles. But I don't know how this team or the individuals would have responded to some short-term failure that you have in the Southeastern Conference. So, those experiences that our kids were going to have this year, were going to help us next year. So, it was tough for everybody involved. And I think now that we've all had time to digest it and see what a global issue we're dealing with, it's put things into perspective. But we were all really disappointed, to say the least.
Sure, absolutely. Normally, you'd be right in the heart of the SEC schedule right now, and your players would be here, students would be on campus. I mean, and we'd be buzzing with excitement, beautiful spring weather. And instead, we're just engulfed with uncertainty. And students aren't in school; they're online. Your players are home and in different places. Gyms are closed. I know that you told me yesterday that right now you just want them to focus on their academics and things like that. But at some point, and as this continues, they're going to need to be working out and throwing and hitting. And if this continues, with the pandemic, what's your approach to talking with your players and getting them at least back to a point where they're training a little bit?
Yeah, Gary, it's hard. Almost all of our players are back home right now, and everybody's situation is different. But most of the community gyms are closed. Most of the high school facilities are closed. We gave all the kids workout programs, and we're communicating with them. But push-ups in your garage is not quite the same as going through a team practice. But it's something that everybody's dealing with, college baseball and just all of us regular folks around the world. So, it's all outside of our control. It's like the umpire strike zone or the weather. You can't control if it's going to rain or not. You just got to roll with it. So, from a baseball standpoint, we're all just really, really hopeful that our kids can play in the college summer leagues. Obviously that doesn't look great right now. It would be a challenge to go from no baseball from early March until the fall or even next spring. But whatever parameters we're working within will be the same that every other baseball player and baseball team are working under, and we'll just have to make the most of it when we get the chance to get back to training.
The SEC schedule, as I mentioned, you were just getting ready to host Missouri in your first SEC series when the plug was pulled on the season. Next year, and I know all this will have to be discussed with the athletic directors in the conference office, but if you play the 2020 conference schedule, that's what would make sense to me, just to play it, because you were scheduled to host Auburn. If they go on and to move to the 2021 season, then you'd be scheduled to go to Auburn after having just gone down there last year. Do you think it could be a combined schedule? What are your thoughts on the schedule? Would you prefer to see them play this year's conference schedule next year, combine it somehow, tweak it, or move to the 2021 schedule? What are your thoughts on that?
Gary, that's something we've talked about at the head coach level within the league, and we're working through it. Obviously, that's just one of a gazillion things we're working through right now. But I agree with you. I think if you play in the Southeastern Conference, like a huge part of this experience is playing in as many of the venues as possible. So, not from a strategic or competitive standpoint, I just think of all of our players. I want them to, when they finish their time here, to be able to say that they've played virtually everywhere in the league. So that's the biggest compelling reason for me to stick with the 2020 schedule. Now, I know every school's got final exams at different times and graduation, and things move around and change. So, the conference is looking at all of that. I'm hopeful that even if the order is different, that we'll be able to stick with the 20 schedule. But there's been nothing decided on that.
I said earlier that next year will be a different team, regardless of what some people are saying. At the same time, you'll have the majority of your guys back. You did play 17 games. You won 16 of them. They weren't conference games, but you swept a series at UNLV. You beat some good teams on your schedule: South Alabama, Lipscomb, UAB. What happened this year? Is that a momentum builder for next year? Can that carry over, or is it because of everything that's happened, it's going to be a completely different season? Or do you see those 17 games you played this year being a building block for next season?
I think it is, Big Gary. Just, we're trying to develop a culture where our kids expect to win. And I think this year, every time we went to the ballpark, that everybody in the dugout expected us to win. So that certainly has value. But like you said, next year's going to be a different team, and we may be better, right? I mean, who knows? But just the chemistry will be different anytime you add new personalities to the locker room. And, we're not losing a ton of people, but, there are some guys that won't be back that played really key roles, whether it was on the field or in the locker room. So, you can't predict all of those things, but anytime you win 16 out of 17 games and players have success individually and collectively, then that's good for everyone's confidence. And, we think we got over the hump this year, whether we can prove it to the external college baseball world or not. In our minds, we got over the hump. And, we had a nice mix of older kids who were just really, really just sick of losing and just really determined to be a part of getting Alabama back. And we also had a bunch of new guys that just thought they were supposed to win because that's what they've done individually their whole lives. And it was a really good, healthy mix. And, next year, hopefully when we get together, whenever it is, that we're going to have a bunch of guys that think we're supposed to be even better next year than we were this year.
Coach, before we wrap it up, with the MLB amateur draft cutting back the number of rounds, with more players scheduled to come back now, how concerned are you, not just necessarily with Alabama, but overall with players transferring or incoming freshmen wanting to go to junior college, or just the impact that this could have on players who look at it now and say, I want to go in a different direction because of all the changes that are occurring with this?
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of movement going forward. And, we've joked that the transfer portal is going to be lit. Man, it's going to be out of control. But I understand that. I mean, there are a million different reasons of why young baseball players pick whatever school they're going to. And, one of them is in the recruiting process. You try to tell every kid of how you expect it to go and what you expect their role to be. And obviously that changes because the roster is going to be different. So I think every school around the country is going to have more attrition than normal, just making the numbers work and just everybody's situation is different. And, just like everything going forward, these are unprecedented times in every way, shape, and form, and things are changing, and we've all just got to, gather information and communicate and figure it out together as we go. So, there's going to be some bumps in the road because these are uncharted waters, and I think for my program, I just think if you're just honest with everybody and you communicate, then you can kind of make most anything work. And so we'll be fine. But I think there's going to be some programs around there that are a little more aggressive, recruiting wise, that are going to have a mess in the fall. I can't see us having over 40 kids. I mean, in the fall, and I think it'd be less than that. But there's going to be some programs that'll probably have 50 or plus kids in fall workouts, and that's just not how I want to do it. And it's going to create some headaches for some other folks, that's for sure.
Lastly, as we wrap it up with Coach Brad Bohannon, University of Alabama head baseball coach, how are you handling this? I mean, baseball is your life. I mean, you're used to being involved in baseball this time of the year, and I know your wife in some ways is probably happy, or maybe she's not, to have you at home. But how are you dealing with this personally? I mean, this has got to be quite a void. Even as I said, understanding the circumstances, and we all do, but still, it's got to be difficult for a head baseball coach who's been involved in the game his whole life now to suddenly not have baseball to coach, baseball to watch. We don't have Major League Baseball. What's that like?
It's different. There's no doubt. And I felt like this past winter was the first time things actually slowed down for me. I really felt like personally I was just wide open for 2 years, which is what you do when you're trying to rebuild a program. And this time of year you're used to being just 100 miles an hour, just wide open, and all of a sudden for it to come to a screeching halt, it's different. I've tried to just focus on the positive. I really enjoyed spending time with my wife. I hardly ever see her in the spring, so I hope that she would say the same. Certainly I've gotten to do some things personally. I've gotten to go fishing a couple times and, work out and, some things that most people probably take for granted that I just don't make time for typically in the spring. So tried to, spend some more time on personal development, and that that sort. So, it's certainly not ideal and not the situation that any of us would want to be in, but I think we all just have to make the most of it. And, we might be in this position for another few weeks at least, right?
Yeah. I know this much. It was only 17 games, but you brought the excitement back to Alabama baseball this spring, and the fans were pumped, and that's going to carry over. There's no doubt. You're going to go into next season with a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of excitement, and I know a lot of people appreciate the job you've done and where this program is headed. And I appreciate your time, Coach. Good to catch up.
Well, Gary, thank you. I appreciate it. And I just want to say thank you to everybody that's listening out there that came to see this group this past spring. It was an awesome shortened season, and just can't thank our fans enough for the patience and support that they've shown us. And we've got some really good baseball in the future headed our way.
Take care, Coach.
All right. Thank you, Gary. Have a great day.